Hello! Welcome back to Tier V Diaries. I am your host, DERPy. And I'm just going to throw that right out the gate because I'm back for round 2. And this time we're going to cover one of the most common Tier 5 medium tanks in the game. If you're brand new to this game, odds are this tank is the first you go for. This is the M4 Sherman. Seeing its numerous film appearances, it makes up around 65% of players' first line choice in game. So that's why I'm going to start here, and then later on down the line we'll just do a wheel spin to see what tank I go over next. To put into perspective kind of how popular this is, here's Cujo with the list of movies that the Sherman has appeared in.
Okay, so I've been asked to list off some Hollywood credentials, if you will, regarding the M4 Sherman and its variants. We have the more common, popular, the more recent things, such as Fury, for instance, Saving Private Ryan. We've also got Band of Brothers 2. I know it's a series instead of a movie, but hey, it's enough. We've also got A Bridge Too Far. That had Sean Connery in it. Wind Talkers. That was an interesting one. Nicolas Cage before he lost his shit. We got The Dirty Dozen. We also have Tank Battalion 1958. We have the movie Patton, also Kelly's Heroes. You can't forget Oddball. You can't. And finally, the movie Tank from 1984.
Thank you, Cujo, for that. Let's get down to brass tacks now. The M4 Sherman has a 460 right continental engine. It's got a decent power to weight ratio, and it has a top speed of 48 kilometers an hour forward and about 18 kilometers per hour backwards. It's got 20% fire chance, which is pretty decent. Most of the armor on this vehicle isn't the best. It's got about 88 on the turret and about 50 on the hull, and it's rounded. So, I mean, you'll have the occasional bounce from like tier 3s or 4s, but hey, at least it is something that will sometimes protect you. The cool thing about this armor is that it's rounded and it's also slanted, so you can make use of the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
And since we're on the topic of high ground, let's talk about the depression of the gun. The gun is a very sad gun. It has 12 degrees of gun depression. Mighty useful for utilizing the high ground, especially because that's pretty much one of the highest medium tank gun depressions at tier 5. View range is pretty good on this tank. It has a 370 meter view range and a rotation speed of 37 degrees a second. Again, it's a decent tank. Basically, a lot of this tank is just nothing but decent when you look on the surface. I mean, it's pretty fast, it's got a pretty decent gun depression, good elevation, and it's not going to be your one-trick pony. No, it is going to be a jack of all trades. So let's get down to guns here. You get a 75mm gun right at the beginning and go to a 105. This 105 is going to set you up for the other 105 that you get. Basically, you have a choice between a DERP and a DPM gun, or a competitive gun. So, you can obviously tell by the name which one I prefer. But, I'll go over the 76 here in a little bit about, how it feels and how you can use it to better mark your tanks, which at some point I'm going to show you how to mark this tank. So the 105 is pretty decent. It's got a 8 to 9 second reload without any consumables or perks. It'll swing for about 350 alpha if you penetrate, or it'll have a decent chip damage on the HE of 100 to 130 if you do not penetrate, depending on the target you shoot at. Funny thing about this thing, this one doesn't come with AP, which is good, because some derp guns, when you first get them, they come with AP, and it clears out the learning curve, and you don't have to do that, and all you know is HE. Now let's move on to the 76. The 76 is a little bit different, only because you're trading out your chance at deleting somebody to slowly chipping them away and having a more consistent gun. So the 76 has a 4.2 second reload time and a 2.3 second aiming time. Alright, accuracy 100 meters, 0.43. It is not very accurate. When you play this tank, you'll notice that this gun will tend to gravitate around, the outer rings of your sightline. So you'll spend more time aiming in than you will, actually landing actual direct shots. This is why I don't really prefer this gun, but however, to each his own. You might prefer this gun over the derp gun because you don't like, you don't like having to know where you're going to pen. In this one, you feel a little bit more comfortable penning things. So, that's good. That's a good gun, decently. I mean, you're able to sit back, you're able to chip at people away. You'll see some of the gameplay here that I actually do pretty well against these tier 7s, just chipping at them away, kind of remaining in cover as best I can. Now let's talk about pen values. So the pen values for the 76, you'll get around 140 to 120 millimeters of just standard pen on your AP. You'll go to 133 to 221 on the APCR on the 76, which is pretty good on the APCR, but you just don't want to shoot straight APCR. And then HE on this gun, you don't want to shoot it at all, only because it's a 76, and usually when you want to load HE on a gun, you want to load on something that is at least a 105. Moving back to the 105, we're going to have two different types of ammunition. We have a HE that'll have about 40 to 66 penetrations, or 40 to 66 millimeters of penetration, my mistake, and about a very high alpha. This is more useful against tier 3s when you know they have little to no armor, or T67s that you run across every now and then. And then your heat, this will have about 90 millimeters exactly of pen, which is really good, but it's still not enough to go through the frontal of many tanks, which I'm now going to go over some of the tanks that you're going to run into. For example, this is Jimmy's mom, this is Jimmy's dad, this is Jimmy, and this is Jimmy's estranged uncle. So all four of those tanks have one thing in common. They have high alphas and high armor, especially the T-34, 85, and 88. Those tanks have the rounded turret, and they have a lot of slants. So naturally, with HE or heat shells, then they will bounce a little bit more. Same thing with the T-29. T-29 is a god tank that you can only really penetrate it with heat from the rear end of it. The Tiger 1 is one of those that are extremely weird too, because it has effectively 100 millimeters of armor on the front, right? And this is where the 90 millimeters of pen kind of gets in the way, because with heat you can't really penetrate, especially with those. But however, if you have the 76 will make pretty easy work of any Tigers that come in your way, given that they're not angled. My favorite equipment setup on this tank is the medium caliber tank rammer, because it helps with that little stuff. Coated optics if you feel like you're not spotting, or if you want to do a little bit more spotting, and then you're going to need your enhanced gun laying drive. Your enhanced gun laying drive will ultimately help you in the long run, especially if you're using the 76, because the 76 is not the most accurate of tier 5 76s. At some point in this series, I'm going to cover the Panzer IV-H, and you'll understand why the 76 is pretty much a staple of their line. Consumables. So with this tank, you're gonna have to run your pretty much standard setup. I usually use all those small stuff, but large stuff always helps in the long run if you can cough up a silver for it. And my 5 preferred perks are the 6th Sense, Brothers in Arms, Repairs, Smooth Ride, and Snapshot. Smooth Ride and Snapshot are a tandem duo that will help with the accuracy of this gun, same thing on the move, and when you're just rotating your turret. It'll help get those snapshots off that where you need them. Repairs, always a good one, especially if you have a destroyed track, always pick it up quicker. This might be one of your second or third perks you go for. 6th Sense, this is always a staple, this should always be your first. Brothers in Arms, I would agree with either the second or third choice, because it basically improves all crew skills in general. And finally, let's get down to what we're here for. Ladies and gentlemen, I am now going to show you how to 3-mark this tank. So, to 3-mark this tank, my preferred gun of choice, obviously, is the DERP. But if you wanted to use the 76, I will give you a general a general limit on damage that you will have to do per match. So roughly per match, you'll find this across all tier 5s, is that you need at least above 1,000 damage. The 105 will reach this in approximately 3 or 4 shots. However, you gotta put a little bit more work in if you're going to use the 76. The 76 is going to do roughly about 100 to 125 damage a shot. So naturally, you're going to have to put in 10 or 11 shots to at least get into the range of damage you need. Anything else other than that will ultimately help you. You always want to make sure you at least get over 1,000 damage every battle, whether it be just from raw damage or from just assisted and raw damage. Assisted damage does count here, and this tank actually does help a little bit with its view range. So you really will have a lot of those times where you're like, oh, I'm getting spotting, oh, I'm getting raw damage. So naturally this tank will come to the 3 mark pretty well. And let's spin to see what our next tank is. We're coming to claim the Holy Land. That's going to do it for me. I've been your host, Derpy. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this, and let's get some hype in the comments as well for the Crusader next week. We're going to go retake the Holy Land, and we're going to leave our mark in our next entry on the Tier V Diaries.
Hello?
Hi, Jimmy's mom.